To introduce Shep Smith to you today, I need to tell you a little bit about the journalism department. The journalism department in 1979 was just a print department, and in the fall of 1979, broadcasting was added to the department, and we inherited 200 majors in radio TV, and they weren't too happy about having all print professors. It took us a long time, but after about 3 years, we found a great professor, 40 years with CBS, a great newsman who worked hard with students outside of class and inside of class. And one of his first students was Shepard Smith. He immediately identified Shep as this young guy who could have a great future. And so Shepard Smith went in the summer of his junior year for an internship in Florida. And as the school year was just about to begin of the fall of his senior year, Shepard Smith decided to make a decision that caused Dr. Pratt to open my office door and yell, "Shep decided to stay in Florida and take a job. He's not going to graduate." So my immediate response was, well, he'll never amount to anything. Shep's career has moved ahead. Let me just read some of the places he's been, even though you may know. He worked in Gainesville, in Fort Myers, in Miami, in Orlando, in Los Angeles, and then established himself in New York City. If you go watch his news show, which I have done several times, I can't figure out how anybody can operate like he does. He's got a cell phone going, there are monitors all over the room, he's walking around, cameras are moving, and if you're in the room with him, they make you move to certain different places at certain times, and you cannot hesitate for a second. So it's a very complicated process. It's not somebody sitting behind a desk. Today, as the chief news anchor and managing editor of Fox Network's Breaking News division, he is the anchor of Shepard Smith Reporting, and his reporting has been a trademark of Fox News Channel. He anchors most primetime news presentations provided by Fox News. He was like so many of you in the 1980s. He was this energetic young guy carrying equipment around everywhere, thinking that he could make a difference, and he has. Through the years, we have watched him develop into this smooth, sophisticated television personality who represents the best of the profession. In the process, we have become so proud of the journalism values that Shep Smith espouses, and truly grateful for his promotion of his roots on this campus. Thank you for accepting this invitation, Shep. Welcome home.
Thank you. I'm usually pretty good at one thing, and that is packing, because I travel so much, like all over the world, and I'm always coming here. We're here about 20 times a year, and I'm very good at it. It's quick. I can get it done. I know where everything is. I know what I need. I know what's going on. It just done in 20 minutes. I forgot the shoes. So, I mean, it's not that big a deal. You can really kind of wear sneakers with a suit. It doesn't matter a whole lot. This was the bigger mistake. I wore maroon. And for this, I'm truly sorry. Because it's blasphemy. Because I care. Sometimes straight friends will say, what is you with this, gay friends will be like, what is with you in football, and why do you continue to carry this sort of, what's the right word? Like a mask, why are you still trying to be straight in that way? I'm like, you don't understand. You have to come with me to Oxford, and then you'll understand. Because I've woken up on an aircraft carrier while we were bombing another nation. I've interviewed kings and queens. I've worked on every continent. I've worked in every single state except North Dakota. And I've seen a lot, millions of miles of travel. And if I get a minute, this is where I want to be. Always has been. I think it always will be. My dad, Shep, and my stepmom, Pat, are on the front row. My partner, Gio, and Miss America all here at the same time, and this is where I want to come. This is where what we spend our money to do, and this is the place where I'm most comfortable. And it's my favorite place in the world to show off, because if you get some people to Oxford, get them to the Grove, or get them out in the Right Field Lounge, or get them in the Pavilion, walk them around town a little bit, no matter what they like, they'll find it here. And I'm very proud to be from Oxford and Mississippi and Ole Miss. Thank you to everyone involved, especially Chancellor Vitter is here this afternoon. We really thank you, Dean Norton from the School of Journalism, and the organizers of this event, and all of you for coming. We were here in the last hour, and there was a panel discussion, and I really learned a lot about, different age kids and what their experiences have been here. And my fear was I was going to look around and there was going to be, a room full of LGBTQ people, and then I realized there are actually going to be some straight people in the room. I'm like, that might actually be helpful. Because it's when we get together and talk it out and realize we're basically exactly the same that things go much more smoothly in life. Please help me keep an eye on Jackson. This is embarrassing. Okay? I grew up in Holly Springs, went to Marshall Academy, did not know anyone famous or anyone who had ever had more than 6 figures of anything in their lives, maybe total. Came to Ole Miss in '83, got out in '87, didn't graduate. The reason I left was because I decided I really liked running a Hardee's restaurant in Destin, Florida. There was a Georgia grad, Bill Atkins, who owned it, and I could make that drive-through sing. We had 12 seconds on breakfast. I mean, Hardee's people were coming in from around the country to come marvel in our greatness. And he was going to open another one in Shalimar, which is up by where Eglin Air Force Base was, and he's like, you can run it, lay out of school. And I did. And I think it was maybe one of the most important things I ever did, because I really learned about little bitty things like 3 napkins instead of 2 napkins, and you just screwed, if that happens over and over and over again. And if you give them 3 ketchups for every fries, I mean, you're going to go broke. So if you learn these little things in life, they really translate to everything else, or they did for me. I'm thankful that I came back and got a little more learning in here, and the late Dr. Pratt, that he was able to convince me to do that. It's what I always planned to do. My mother would have killed me, literally, if I hadn't come back. But I didn't graduate because I got a job, and it was 1987. And we, believe it or not, before this Great Recession, we've actually had previous recessions. They've existed, and we had one then, and it was bad, and interest rates were really high. 17, 18% on a house I think we were going to have to pay, Dad. 21% was what we were going to be able to get to build a house in Holly Springs. Obviously, we didn't do that. And, times were tough, so I took the job when I could take it, moved down to Panama City, stayed there for a while at the NBC, moved from there to Fort Myers for a little while at the NBC there, and then moved to the CBS in Orlando and the Fox down in Miami. And all the time, I'm just sort of chasing ambulances and trying to find out what's going on, and going to city council meetings and trying to make them relatable. At a time when really television was how people were getting their news, it was important, it felt to me at the time, and I wanted it to be important. I wanted to operate in the public interest, convenience, and necessity, and I wanted to be their eyes and ears and let them know what's happening so that they could decide what they think about what's going on in the world. And I really think it started around the breakfast table with the plastic covering on it and the blue walls. Remember? No, he doesn't remember. My dad, Shep, is 89, but I won't fib about such things because he wasn't married to my stepmom, whom I love more than life at the time, but she was around and she'll know if I fib and she'll stand up and tell you. But there was a plastic covered table and we would sit there, and when we were kids, part of the discussion, not all of it, we weren't really political people, but part of the discussion was the Vietnam War, because it was going on and you were getting a lot of, who is that? Pat, is that you? They were getting a lot of information and disinformation and misinformation, and then they lost Cronkite, and then they sort of lost the country. And there was some arguing on my breakfast table about Vietnam. And at the time I was thinking, if I could just get over there and find out what's happening and let mom and dad know, we could avoid these discussions. You know, little kid. And then by the time I was 13, one of the panelists from the last hour worked at WMC Action News 5 for a while, which used to just be Channel 5. I don't know why they have all these names now. But they had the first, I think we called it a minicam then. They had the first live shot capability live truck in Memphis, which, you know, Memphis is the biggest city in the world if you're coming from Holly Springs. And they had Elvis's funeral coming down Union Avenue, I believe it was. And I'm sitting in front of the TV, and I'm thinking, I'm watching this live on television. Work with me. We'd never, ever, ever, ever seen this. No one had ever seen it. I mean, you'd seen something from somewhere with Eric Severide or someone, but nobody local had ever been live, not in my world. And I'm immediately like, oh shit. Now I can actually do this. I might be able to get over there and find out what's happening in Vietnam and let the parents know about it. I really might. And that's when I decided this is what I wanted to do. So I came here, and Ole Miss wasn't really known for journalism. It was, but not for broadcast journalism. As Dean Norton said, they had just started the program a few years before I got here. But Dr. Pratt came along, God rest his soul, and sort of inspired me, and we did some investigative work at the Union Grill. Do not eat the burgers at the Union Grill. They left them in there too long, and we got them. I think some heads rolled over that, if I remember. I think some heads rolled. They were not pleased. How do you know how long that burger has been in that transfer cabinet? Well, we watch it and we manage it. Oh, do you? How long has that one been there? Oh, no more than 20 minutes. That's the rule. Well, I'd had a camera on it for an hour and a half. It'd been there at least an hour and a half. It had not moved. I had the video. It's so great to have the video. I was like, nope. And the Food and Drug Administration says, you know how the rest of this goes. And I was like, man, that's the greatest thing. That's the greatest thing ever. I actually did something that's going to freaking matter. Someone is not going to get sick because I spent the afternoon here. And I was like, this is it. That's what I want to do forever. And I did. So I went to Panama City and chased ambulances and went through all that ambulance chasing and then went to a current affair, which was a disaster. And then Rupert Murdoch was starting up a cable news channel, which we'd been hearing. If you're old enough, you've been hearing that Rupert Murdoch was going to start a cable news channel, you know, since Fluff was a kitten, and she's a full-grown cat. And you knew better, but they might, you know, nibble around the edges at it, and I might get to work for them for a little while, might be able to get a good tape together, because usually fledgling organizations, now they would have a bunch of seed money, but then they just didn't have good accounting and stuff, and you could spend whatever money you wanted. You get a lot of freelancers in, you could travel more than other places. I'm like, we'll ride this horse till they get an accounting department together and a budget together, and then I'll get out of there. And that's just not how it worked out. And I think part of it was I went from, there was a time when I would work the Pentagon and the White House and Los Angeles and London in the same week. So it was overwhelming how much you were working, and I was never at home. I moved to New York from Los Angeles in maybe August or September, and it was after Christmas before I ever spent more than one night in a row in my apartment. I was never there. Like for a year and a half, I was still getting carded when I came into my own building. So I'm just traveling, and popping up all over the world live because we didn't have enough people, and other people needed to get home. They needed to get home to their dog or their children or their wife or their husband. And I didn't need to do that. I needed to sort of escape what my reality might have been because I wasn't answering my own questions or even posing my own questions to myself about what it is that's different about me, because I'm really not different. I really like all the same stuff y'all boys like, all of it. But I am different. And I'm not getting in touch with this, and I'm not going to be in touch with this, and I'm not asking this question. I'm going to put it in a box. Put this box over here, going to close that door. Going to walk through this door, close that door, and then I'm going to operate from over here. So that's sort of how I rolled, and that's why it wasn't until, 7 or 8, 9 years ago that I started actually living my true, because I didn't really know what it was. I grew up in Holly Springs. I went to the First Methodist Church. I went to Ole Miss. You know what we do. We wear khakis and starched white shirts, and we all do what everybody else does, and hotty toddy. You know? That's what we do. Y'all wear dresses, we wear khakis. You know, we're drunk by 10, and I'm not making that 8 o'clock, and what are you doing on Friday? So, like, it was all, I didn't get it. I just didn't get it. But as a result of the fact that I didn't get it, I was also trying to avoid having whatever a normal social life is. I didn't need to go home and find my girlfriend or my boyfriend or deal. I just cut everything. I just cut it all. So that for years, where do you want me? Going. But next plane. And because of that, I've really witnessed the most ridiculous stuff to happen in the world for the last 20 years, 25 years. I was at Columbine 3 hours after it happened. I was at 9/11 5 minutes after it happened. You know, I was at Diana for a month when Diana was on the air for 12 hours, immediately got on a plane, was in London for, I don't know, almost 4 weeks, and have covered everything. I've really been on the front lines, really writing part of the first draft of history. And as a young journalist, I mean, are you kidding me? I'm from Holly Springs. I don't know anybody, nothing. I have no connections of any kind. Also, I have this huge, weird-ass thing that I'm hiding over here, and I don't even know I'm doing it, and I'm just going like a rabbit. I will cover it. I will not miss a day. No, if they won't cover it, I'll be there. It's my stepsister's wedding. It's verdict day for Timothy McVeigh. I watched him die. It's verdict day for Timothy McVeigh. I'll be there, miss the wedding. So I just went and did and hustled, and no one was going to outwork me. And no one did. If the photog couldn't shoot it, I'd grab the camera and shoot it. In a union world, they'll cut your arm off for that, but we didn't have that. So I kind of did everything and worked really hard and just kept going and going and going, but sort of kept my Mississippi Ole Miss sensibilities about myself, I think. I didn't take the time to decide that I'd become something because I moved away from here. I think I was something because of the foundation that I got here. And it really didn't have anything to do with sexuality or anything else. It's just something about mom and them and home and stuff we kind of know that other people don't, right? I think we get that in ways other people don't. But I had this weirdness, and I had to someday deal with it. And my producer, Kim Rosenberg, who's been my producer for, I don't know, she's old as Methuselah. But she used to say, I mean, I wasn't like, once I figured it all out, I wasn't hiding anything from anybody. I never hid anything from anybody. I mean, I was always as true to me as I knew how to be. If I was fibbing to you, it's because I was fibbing to me. And I didn't realize I was fibbing to you because I didn't know I was fibbing to me. And that sounds like such a load of crap, but it really is my truth. I don't have to ever fib about anything again as long as I live, and that's really makes everything so much easier, right? So I really hit it hard, and I was crushing everybody. And my bosses were just sort of astounded, like, how can you keep doing this? I think I went 89 days in a row without a day off once, and then a couple of days, and then you go 50 days, and then a couple of days, and you go 40 days, and they eventually get to where they gave me a day off at Columbine one day, just stay in the hotel room one day because you gotta, or at Katrina, you know, at some point they're just like, you have to sleep. You can't continue to stay up. And I think part of that was this other thing that I had going on. I didn't want to ask myself that question or figure that out or learn how to deal with that, because to me it was antithetical to all that is okay. A, you're going to hell for it. B, you'll never have any friends again. What are you going to tell your family? And then what do you do? Where are you going to find some dude? And by the way, you're on television on the craziest conservative network on earth. They'll probably put you in front of a brick wall and mow you down. Of course, none of that was true. That was me. That wasn't true. You know, that's not how it was. But that's how I felt. And every time we, as a group or as individuals, stereotype and then expect people to conform within those stereotypes, you're really messing everything up. Because the big black guy in the back is not always the criminal, and the little white guy in the front, girl in the front, is not always the victim. And once we can come to terms with that as journalists, then all the rest of this stuff kind of works itself out, because that's really ingrained in us. The little white girl is the victim, and the big black boy is the perpetrator. And that's still true on many levels, and it is right here in this town and everywhere else. And we have to end that. We have to end that. But that goes for us too, because like on a Saturday, I don't give anything about your brunch. I respect you and your brunch. You should enjoy the brunch. The drag queens will be great. I'll be at Vaught Hemingway because that's where I want to be. And I'm not playing your stereotypes. I need to be there. And then later I need to watch ESPN for the rest of the day. And then tomorrow I need to think about it. And then I need to find out about injuries. And then I need to worry about, it just is. It's harder when you like boys to find other people to roll like this until you put them on a private jet and bring them here. Hi, welcome to Oxford. When I was at Columbine, we got there a couple of hours after I had a speech plan, but the last thing was inspiring, so I figured I would just wing it. I'm going to give you guys a lot of question time because that's what I want to do in just a minute. But when I was at Columbine, the first thing we heard was trench coat, tattoos, long guns, goth. It was the trench coat goth guys who were shooting up the cafeteria over my shoulder. And we lived with the trench coat stereotype for how long? We all saw it. Trench coat, stereotypes, goth killers, watch them in the library. That's not who those kids were. Dylan and Eric were different kids who were stereotyped. I'm in no way making any kind of excuses for them. They ruined lives. They changed my life. I hate them. They're dead. But a lot of kids who kind of like the goth thing or might think it's cool to wear a trench coat had to suffer a lot after that. That shouldn't happen. After 9/11, crazy people decided this was about Muslims. Those are crazy people. They're crazy. And if you're one of them, consult the mirror, because you too are crazy. They were very uncomfortable. I live in a very inclusive sort of place where we speak 170 languages in the school system in New York, so I don't really run across this as much. It's very weird to us, but outsiders came in and said, we don't want this mosque downtown by where the Trade Center came down. Oh God, we can't have that. We cannot have them worshiping their God right there in front of the place that they burned down. You know what? They didn't do that. People who bastardized that religion brought that thing down and started this conflict. And it's not about religion. And yet we're turning it into that because that's what they want us to do. And Muslims are now being stereotyped. And that's ridiculous. Things I don't understand, I don't understand half of what it is that's happening in Jackson. Not half of it. I don't understand how we've come so far, how my university is no longer the place where they had riots on the front door because they wouldn't let Meredith in. My university is the place where they got a statue of him in the backyard and where we celebrate the fact that we screwed that up and we put it up there to remind ourselves, never let this happen again. We can't. We have a special responsibility as people from this place to go out and show the world with our deeds and our actions that we are very inclusive and we want everyone who's good to be here and the rest of y'all can go. We don't care what your color is. But these are very easy things to clap for, but they're not always that easy to actually make happen. And we've got leaders down in Jackson who are embarrassing us again. This is not who we are. I know it. I know it's. I would not come here anymore. I certainly would not pay these dang property taxes. I would not. I would not, could not. That's not how we are. And yet, that's how they lead us. We must resist. And then there's story after story after story where it's the categorization and the ostracization that happens that ruins everything. It's rarely the act. As bad as 9/11 was, what's happened since then, in my mind, is as bad or worse. We've turned on ourselves. We're eating our young. It's insane. And young people can lead us out of this, because my experience has been working with young people that when you see that Chancellor Vitter and the rest of this university are trying to add context and perspective to our symbols, this is a good thing. You know, when you see this Confederate memorial, we don't have to tear it down if that's what we've decided, but we do have to explain the other side of this thing. And it really matters. And you have to bring focus groups together, and you have to placate all the people involved. But so that we can move on, we have to do these things. And they've done a fantastic job of it. This is not an easy, this place is littered with landmines. And yet they're getting it done. When I was a freshman here, it was the flag. Of course, it's always the flag. And again, it's the flag. Stop it. But then it was a big deal because we had our first black cheerleader. First black cheerleader. I was in school. And it had to go. You know, we had to figure out a way to get rid of it. And I wrote a letter to the editor of the Daily Mississippian about it. And you'd have thought I had spread typhoid. It was not a popular thing. But you know that if whatever it is that is in front of you that represents all of us, if it is divisive in some way, we got to fix it. Oh, well, it's my heritage. Well, your heritage is divisive. And that really offends some people, so it's got to go. Whatever it is. Don't let them steamroll you. Don't let them, you can't remove the color blue. But there's a lot of stuff, we're going to have to just be a little bit flexible on. And that flag, it's just, isn't it stupid that this is what our legislature is talking about? That this is what we concern ourselves? And in the Grove, when they think with the, shut up. I feel like we have a responsibility when they wear that thing on them to walk up to them and go, you shouldn't do that. You should take that off, and here's why, and talk to them like adults. I think it's just a game. I think it's a game that we've played here for a long time. And you can't be too much of an activist when what your job is to report the news. But you can remind people, of what happened under that flag, Don't forget, young black people know. So it's got to go. Put it in the museum. Don't get rid of it. Certainly put it in the museum. Use it as a teaching device. Have it as part of your curriculum and make it a part of your life that is centered around a museum. Sure. Get it out of that stadium. Get it out of my Grove. And get it out of my state. I'm embarrassed by this. And Mississippi's been embarrassing us for generations. And then all of a sudden, they put James Meredith's statue up front, and they start giving context to all of our stuff. And little black boys and little gay boys from all over the world want to come here and experience the greatness that is this amazing place. And we can get this done on our own. We just have to keep those who lead us in check. And maybe educate our neighbors a little bit. So I'm supposed to be talking to you about inclusion and my life story in that way, but I've never really stood in front of a crowd and talked to them about the gay, because, I live in Greenwich Village in New York City, and I have for 20 years, and I don't know, and I never thought about it. Since I got past all my weirdness, it's like, this isn't a thing. But I guess it is a thing, so if you have questions about the sort of freaky place that I'm working right now or any of that stuff, I've reached a point in life where every question is a good question. I might not answer all of them, but I got nothing to hide. So if any of you have questions, I would entertain them now. Yes?
So I'm writing a story for us on stories.net. It's part of my class that I can do a project on. And I'm ready to get on drones, you know, like a lot of my friends call me drone experts.
Mm-hmm.
Basically every single drone I get is a new experience, like I said. But the new drone policy at Ole Miss completely bans them on campus, like inside and out. So a lot of people consider that like stifling a future trillion-dollar industry. Have you heard about the drone policy at all?
I've heard about the FAAs, and if Ole Miss is doing that, it needs to get in line behind everyone else. They have to figure out, I mean, we haven't figured out how to regulate the internet and speech, and get in line. Good luck. I can't even fly mine in my own backyard in New York because we have a rule for everything, so. Not over my own property above 20 feet. Go away, you know? Anybody? Yeah.
Hi, I'm a broadcast journalism student here, and I'm on the path to be an anchor one day. And I wanted to know what.
Do you plan to be a reporter first?
Yes.
That's comforting.
Know what is important to take from each job you go through to get to the point where you're at. Because
Well, everybody's journey. That's such a millennial word, and I do hate it. And there it came. But everybody's path is different. But, I think what I was doing along the way was figuring out what they wanted because they always want something. It's usually a corporation that you work for. And there are a lot of things I could talk to you about, but this is my favorite one. The corporation is going to want something. They're either sales-centered and they've got a car dealership. You want to leave this alone. They want you to dress in this way. They want you to use double boxes, not a monitor. They don't like, whatever it is that they want, if it's not what you want to do, figure out how to make them think you're giving it to them anyway and don't. Each corporation is different, and that sounds like hogwash, but that's what I've spent most of my life doing. Because once I got to this place, I had to convince them that I was just going to do the news, and I don't care about your opinion pages, and I don't, but don't ever come over here and tell me what to say or how to think, because that'll be the last day. And you just have to sort of establish that rule and then be ready to go. But to keep from having that happen to you, you can figure out what it is they want and just avoid it or make them think they're getting it. So you're just playing head games because all they care about is that dollar. That's all they care about. Some of them are put on a better show. Some of them figure out, okay, we can monetize news. Most of them want to do opinion disguised as news or whatever it is. Whatever it is they want to do, if it's not exactly what you want to do, make them think they're getting it and stick to your guns. Don't ever, ever compromise your values. Don't ever say something that you know is not true. And if you say something that is true, you're duty bound to correct it immediately. And if you do that every time, they'll never get you. They'll never be able to take you down legitimately if you're sure that you were going for the facts, and when you screw the fact up, you correct it. You're duty bound to do that. And if you can do that, you'll be fine, I think. Facts matter. Come on. It's Friday and you came to this room. You have to have, gosh. Yes?
what's your biggest advice on getting a job in New York City?
Oh, get a job somewhere else first. New York City, in my opinion, and I've done this, so it's very different. And it's not just different that we operate faster and we speak different, and we understand that you don't just drive on the right-hand side of the road, you also walk on the right-hand side of the sidewalk. And everything about life has a way, and no one tells you what it is. And if you're real polite, I hate you. Because it gets in the way, there's no time for it, economy of words, staccato movements. No, I'm not going to look you in the eye. This is foreign to you. And it's not going to work right away. You have to figure that out first and then go get a job there. You got to work somewhere else where they don't care about you and you don't care about them. It's not that we don't like each other. We're just very busy and in a really big hurry. And we got to get to that train, got to get to that elevator, got to get back to that train, get back to that elevator. Yeah, so go do something else. But the way to get a job anywhere is to never compromise your principles, to never for 1 millisecond do it unless you're sure it's right. If you're not sure it's right, then go find out. But you can't follow blindly. It takes a lot of people down a path of destruction. Yep. Hi.
Okay, so this is going to kind of play into the theme a little bit, but, during the Bush area, during the early 2000s, there was sort of this...
Bush 43. The second Bush.
Right.
Uh-huh.
There was sort of that witch hunt of, LGBTQ organizations going through and outing all the politicians and all of the sort of media people that they felt they weren't living their truth. And I feel like there's a lot of times where sort of that, there's a stereotype there that people don't understand of, I have this thing, it's in a box, I haven't dealt with it yet. Can you sort of, because there's been plenty of documentaries, and you've even been included in some of those, and so can you sort of talk to that sense of, I'm dealing with this, don't push me into your box?
Yeah, I'm not the guy. I know, I'm not the guy because, like I said, I didn't get it for a long time and I put it in a box. And one day I found the box. Then I cried for a long time and I talked to my friends, my close friends, and then I started trying to figure out if I could have that life, which I didn't really think I could. And then I started having that life, and this coming out thing, it's like, I don't know. I never really did that. Somebody asked me if Roger Ailes had been abusive to me, and I said no, he was always good to me because that's the truth. And when I told the truth, I guess it was considered that I outed myself, and I didn't even think about it because I didn't think I was in. I don't know. I didn't know. I didn't think about it. I don't think about my faggitude. I don't think about it. It's not a thing. I go to work. I manage a lot of people. I cover the news. I deal with the holy hell going on around me, and I don't think about it. I go home to the man I'm in love with, and I come home to my family, and I didn't have that. I'm not the guy for that. I wish I could be that guy. I'm not. It didn't happen with me. The box got open. It was weird, and I dealt with it, and all the lying and all the stuff that I really didn't know had been happening. And then I felt like a liar and a horrible person. And then I met George Weinberg, and he helped me figure it out. And now I just want to win on Saturdays. That's all I want to do. I don't care about no bowl. You don't need to name all these games. You don't need to do anything. I just need to beat LSU. That's it. And I'm fine. Huh? Oh, go to hell LSU. My dad likes that. Anybody? Hi. Yeah, that's guy. That works.
My mom and dad are both Mississippi, and they went to upstate. My mom got her doctorate degree in Jackson, and then they left about as soon as they could.
Yeah.
I see that with a lot of my classmates, in that they love home and they love Mississippi, but they don't think that they can do what they want to do and stay. What do you think we need back and forth for young kids who are from Mississippi, who love Mississippi, to kind of stay and make Mississippi what it can be, what it should be?
That's a great question. Everything is not available in every place. There are plenty of things that are never going to be available in Mississippi. But there are plenty of things that we're just ruling on, And that's one of the reasons I'm so proud of this place, because one thing Ole Miss has done through all of its struggles is give our kids a chance. We're educating our children here, and some of our children are willing to stay here and make our state a better place. And I think I can say really without bias, more as an observation, maybe there's some bias, but more as an observation that the people who come out of this place tend to do really well. In some cases there are leaders, there are bankers, there are lawyers, there are doctors, and it's my hope that this place is allowing our kids to stay home. I wrote in my high school yearbook that I wanted to have a wife and a dog and a half and a 2-3 and live in Nashville and retire at WSMV. And they kept turning my tape down. And I never thought, I'd never been west of the Mississippi, west of Texas or north of the Carolinas when I got out of high school, and I knew Holly Springs, and that's about it. And that didn't even slow me down at all, you know? I didn't feel confined. I felt like my Holly Springs upbringing, where I knew no one and we didn't have a lot, we had it great. But it wasn't like we were rolling in dough and traveling around the world any more than anyone else was. But I never felt like that was a hindrance. And I didn't realize until I got to New York, and all my friends are Ivy League kids, and they're all millionaires, and they all know governors and Indian chiefs and stuff. I didn't know any of these people. You know, I'd never known any of these people, and I'd never seen all this money. And once I finally got to New York, I realized, holy crap, I really had a deprived life. These people know everybody, and yet I got it done too. And one of the things that I was going to tell you if I'd read the speech that I wrote is that if you're from Eupora or Iuka or Mount Pleasant, you know, or Hickory Flat, you can do whatever you want. And what you're supposed to do is go do it and give and bring some of it back here. Because this really is our only hope. Our institutions are our only hope. Our government is regressive and our institutions are progressive. And this place is turning out good kids and they're educating them well. And it hasn't always been the case. And it's really on track. And I feel like we owe this place and the idea behind it of a state education that's available to everyone, regardless of race, creed, or color, or how much money you have. If we can support that concept, we have a chance to make life better. Our state deserves better than it has gotten. We made a lot of mistakes as a people over time, but we're doing a lot better. And I like coming back and supporting. But in answer to your question, everything isn't here. But there's no reason why you can't crush it here. The great thing about here is you don't have to have so much to live good. You know, you don't have to be a millionaire to live nice in Holly Springs. So you can do well and have a great life, just like what I expected to do, what all my friends do, you know. Don't ever think the money gonna make you happy. I promise you it isn't. It looks so great, and then it's nothing. It really isn't. Anybody? Hi. You? I don't know your name, I'm sorry. Hardest story. 9/11 was hard. I think Columbine might have been the hardest. Anybody remember Columbine? Are you all too young for that? Oh, good. Columbine happened while we were in our morning meeting, midday meeting, in the basement at 1211 Avenue of the Americas in Midtown. And there was a kid. What we knew was there was a kid shooting inside the cafeteria. And that's all we knew. And they were like, well, let's wait and see what happens, which is what people were doing at every news organization in New York. And I'm sorry that the news is all in New York, but it is, so I'm sorry. And everybody else was like, let's wait and see. I'm like, are you kidding me? There's a child in a cafeteria shooting other children. What are we waiting for? What more do you need to hear than that? Unless you think this isn't true, this is a freaking thing. Nothing like this had ever happened. School shootings were new things. That's hard to imagine, but they were brand new. There are children murdering other children in the school. We're going to LaGuardia. This was pre-9/11, so we got right on the damn plane. You know, you didn't have to wait 10 minutes. There was no screening. You just went on, and when we plopped down on the ground, and I'm there before the Today Show and ABC and everybody else, and first one there from New York, of course, and New York is the only thing that matters, obviously. And we were in the middle of all these kids who've just seen, oh my God, the stuff they've just seen. And we are talking to these children about their headless friends, you know, and it went on and on, and the video and the transformation, if only for a short time, of the nation was overwhelming. And learning the vulnerability of children within their own safe space, realizing this is not a safe space and that we have to change who we are and how we roll. That was hard. Dealing with those children were hard. The Oklahoma City bombing may have been harder. I was there a couple of hours after that happened. And there was all this hate about all these brown people from another continent who have another religion who clearly blew our thing up because they hate our system. And oh, it was a white Christian boy from down the road. Everybody had a really hard time with that because you really, really, really need a boogeyman. And the boogeyman does not need to look like you. That's harder. So at that trip, we were there for 3 or 4 weeks. I was working for WSBN 7 in Miami, and it's the heartland. They have children, and they do a lot of Jesus, and so they were bringing all these kids up and having them put flowers on this wall. Well, we were having a bad moment. I'd been following this one family for a week. They were waiting to hear about their loved one who they didn't know yet, and they finally found something that let them know that they were dead. And we'd been following them with our cameras, vultures that we are, and we had befriended them, and they came out of the door and just explosive finality all over their bodies. It was horrifying. And we went back to our encampment, which is an area where the women and families and children would walk by to put these flowers on that thing that became a memorial service. It was like a fence. It became a memorial. And this family saw that we were having a bad moment. Believe it or not, we also, in bad moments, get over in the corner and cry a little bit, especially having come so close. And this family brought over the cookies that they were taking to the firefighters and gave them to us and thanked us for telling their story and helping the rest of the world understand. I would later cover that trial in Denver, start to finish, and then I would later go to the execution, and I watched him die and was a media witness of him dying. But those moments on that wall in that city, in the heartland of America, and hearing their local news anchors doing what amounted to an all-night chat fest. They stayed on all night and didn't run commercials, and they would let people call in and talk about how horrible everything is, And then there was this scar on the city right in the middle of it. Couldn't tear it down fast enough. There were all these bodies in there. It was really, really hot. And after a few days, the wind shifted. Ever smell dead people? So the smell of hundreds of decaying people, you're living in it. You can't get it out of your clothes, So it was like that. And that was harder than 9/11 in a way because the buildings came down downtown. They were gone. It was a pile. There were posters up everywhere of where's my this one, where's my that one, and you knew. But at Columbine, their bodies were still in the building. At Oklahoma City, the bodies were still in the building. The families were walking around going, get their bodies out, let us bury them. And a white Christian guy from down the road did this. And it was hard for people to process. So that was a hard one. But, you sign up for this and you want to be the one who records it, and you mostly got to keep your head about yourself and realize this is not about me. I need to tell a really good story. I need to get you excited and get you engaged when it's really boring and it's a mundane day, and my bosses, they need some numbers because got to sell some ads. And then on the big days, you just take it down. Don't let the facts get ahead of yourself. Don't worry what anyone says on Twitter. Just keep your head about yourself and realize somebody out there is probably looking to you for some sort of centering, a little bit of information dissemination without favor or bias. And that's a worthwhile profession, and I'm proud and honored to do it, and really pumped that I got my start in Hotty Toddy. Thank you all for coming, and thank you for sponsoring this. And nice to see you.